Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At Home with Holmes. My voice is sounding deep, and so we are ready to get rolling. We have a couple of items to introduce to you guys, and I want to talk about how important sponsors are because they are the unsung heroes of literally every single person that you decide to support. You got to support the people that support us to support us. So, for starters, we have a beautiful family that has been our sponsor from day one, Cabin on the Coulee farm.
Yes, you can find it at cotc.ca. And what is it? It is a glamp site business in central Alberta here. This business and the family that runs it, very close to home, literally and metaphorically. So if you guys go here, like we do, we go annually as a whole clan to decompress and get some respite and repose.
Yeah, and you guys can go to cotc.ca, and it is #1 farm stay in Canada, according to TripAdvisor 101. And if you go down, you'll see the different glam sites that you can choose from. All of them are lovely, and they're available from May to November.
Book right now.
Book right now. So starting with the cabin, which is the largest location, it holds 6 guests, 4 beds, and 2 bathrooms, and all of the details are on the website. It's been revamped, so it gives you every little nitty gritty. And then you will go into the Coulee yurt, which holds 5 guests, 3 beds, and 1 bathroom. All of the photos are online for you guys to take a look at. And then you have the Grouse House, which holds 4 guests, 2 beds, and 1 bathroom, and all of these locations are pet friendly. And then if you guys want to go to Cabin on the Coulee Substack, that's how you can learn more about the beautiful family that supports us. And you can get news and updates, not just about what's going on with the business, but also what's going on with just Eric and his family and their life.
Yes, and then the second thing, the latest and greatest product, is I actually came out with a poetry anthology.
We are creating, and by we I mean Maddie.
Yeah, the idea behind this is that poetry transcends political boundaries. And so although it may seem like, oh, me and Macy are
politically
inclined,
we
too
couldn't
conservative.
understand the average teenager.
Yeah,
we were the average teenager.
Exactly. This poetry anthology is just exposing all my fallibilities, essentially. And so it is a perfect introduction for your kid, for us to start building something in a relationship that'll actually connect us in ways that'll bring us through the long haul rather than just relying on the trends of current political games.
And would you say, Maddie, that this book kind of goes through the evolution of, I guess, your critical thought, or I guess not so critical to critical in terms of evaluating your values going forward in your life?
Absolutely. I mean, this was the phase of where I thought stoicism and rationality was above everything. This is before I really considered what a reasonable and archetypical woman would be. It goes from kind of self-deprecative to self-reflection and then some actual self-fortification. So that's to encourage people and find good values at a younger age.
Amazing. And then if you didn't know already, me and Maddie are matcha addicts. So if you guys go to buymeacoffee.com/athomewithholmes, that's how you can support us in fueling our matcha addiction. But also, if you go to our shop, that's where you can find our Alberta jerseys.
Alberta jerseys to infiltrate your own hockey games. So maybe get one of these to encourage the conversation.
Yeah, because again, this is a representation of the movement of us trying to fight the British imperial system. And it might encourage you to want to move here to Alberta. And if that is the case, then also support our mama, who is a real estate agent. And if you are like, I got to get out of Dodge, she can also help you with that too. So we will put her email in the description below. And now we will get on with the episode.
Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Holmes. I can see Mitch is looking at me. Because everybody, if you don't recognize this backdrop, we have him here in person.
Good. Fun to be here.
Yes, this is our second in-person interview. For those who haven't watched the first, it was with Angela Taybeck and Judy from our CA board. And that was an independence debate between 2 women. It was an independence conversation between 2 women. And there was also another important one, which is why we did it in person. And Mitch felt this was just as important because today we were talking about Alberta youth specifically. It is not just a general update because that's what he goes on John Bolton's show for. Before anything, I mean, we're actually, Macy and I, being on the scene of the youth, we got youth questions and concerns regarding Alberta's future and more importantly, their future, because one thing people need to understand is that for the youth, there's a large portion of Alberta youth that don't necessarily feel a loyalty to Alberta itself. They're worried about their future. And so there are youth that are strictly for Alberta independence because they love Alberta. But I find the majority that we've talked to, it's because they're concerned about their future. And to them, this is just a no-brainer of how to put things back in your own hands, because they want solutions. They're growing up very practical, guys on the job, and they just want solutions, and they believe it's easier to create your own solutions. And so they find that Alberta independence appeals to them because it's closer to home. It's something that they feel they can actually have an input and a say with versus trying to do it a couple provinces down the way. And so we will be giving comments and questions from the actual youth and feedback that we got within the last couple days. But before we get into that, for those who don't know Mitch, why is Mitch somebody that can answer these questions? So what makes you qualified, sir? Who are you?
What makes me qualified? Well, I have 5 kids. I have 5 kids. So the youngest ones are 30. But what makes me qualified to do this is I have lived in the best time in Canadian history. And I'm going to tell you what, and you know, not loyal to Alberta, from your initial comment there. It's funny because when I grew up, the state took care of the people. And I know that sounds funny. They didn't take care of us monetarily. They didn't take care of us any other way. But what they did was they allowed us to succeed. What they did was they took the red tape out of the road. I was in business on my own at 20. At 21, I owned a house.
Oh my
I
God.
was in business on my own. I was living by myself when I had graduated from the University of Alberta. Didn't like that. I graduated in biology, and then I decided, you know what, this isn't for me. Not enough money in it for me. I want to have more control over how much I earn, and I want to absolutely be able to, you know, live the life that I want to live. And that's what I decided to move to, where I thought that would be the best place, which was Bonnyville. And then, you know what, I got into business right away. I'm in the sporting goods business, and I've been in that business for 49 years now, and it's still running, and it's a family business now. And I dare you to try and do that today.
Yeah, no.
Or buy a farm today, or do anything today.
Oh my gosh, inherit a farm.
Inherit a farm, but you can't even inherit a farm.
No.
And that's the whole problem. So here's the goal. The goal is to go back to that, so that you can take care of yourself. And I'm going to tell you something else that wasn't unusual. And I say this in talks on occasion, when I talk to 2 rooms of people, and I say, back then, before birth control, if you can imagine, I'm that old, girls would get pregnant in high school.
Yeah.
And it was a regular thing.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something else that was a regular thing. They got married. They had the baby. The husband at 18 or 19 years old was able to support the family.
Right.
They could buy a house. They could have a couple other kids. And he could support everybody. So the family unit was safe and healthy back in those days, because it was not unusual for that to happen, for people to get married at 20, 21 years old back then. So people were able to support themselves. Now, look at what's going on today. I've got a daughter who's a lawyer, makes really good money, who basically said to me a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, Dad, I will never be able to buy a house. That is just wrong. That is just absolutely wrong.
Wow.
So what I'm saying to you,
Even in a big job like that, you'd figure
even
that
in a
she
big
could.
job. But when you're in a big job like that, you're living in a place that costs a lot of money to live. And so, you know, properties around Calgary, downtown Calgary, where she works, are expensive. And that's the problem. The problem is it's just not manageable. So here's the problem. The problem is that in order for there to be money and wealth and all the stuff that you need to succeed, you have to have industry. You have to have something. You cannot create it out of thin air. There has to be something there. You have to be able to pull the oil out of the ground and sell the oil, and that creates jobs, and that creates wealth, and that creates money going around in a circle. And in Alberta, our government has been attacking us since the National Energy Program, and trying to keep that oil on the ground. So as a consequence to that, our kids are not able to earn big paychecks like they should be able to earn, based on, and you got to keep up with inflation, so the paychecks get bigger as the money gets inflated. But we're not keeping up with inflation.
No.
And there's the problem, right? So and they're not pulling oil out of the ground. And they've been saying that, this is not working. This is terrible. We're living on the richest piece of real estate in the world right now, and our people are struggling.
Yeah.
And it's impossible for me to understand that, so that's what I'm doing every day. I want this all to stop. All this nonsense with the carbon capture, all of that kind of stuff is all designed to stop you from succeeding. And I know that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. So the thing is that this carbon plan that we have. So let's just be clear. This is my point of view, and so I'll just tell you this is my point of view, and I have some background here, so I may be right. I may not be, but I'll get around to that too. We're a carbon sink here in Alberta. We have hundreds of billions of trees here. We have lakes that suck up CO2. We are not a big CO2 producer, anyways, and there has to be a trade-off between industry and making a mess, basically, for a simpler way to put it.
Well, you know what's a tiny little adage to that as well is everybody gets upset, especially in our generation, about the climate issue. And to me, when I'm thinking of it, it's one of those, if we were actually developing our industry, right, and using our oil and gas because energy is life, right, then there are ways, and I don't subscribe to the carbon sequestration narrative or that, fossil fuel is bad or abiotic oil, wink, wink. But what I would say, though, is that if you were using it, right, if we were actually applying it to industry and manufacturing, then you have more energy and actual physical goods that are traveling within our province and creating that wealth. Essentially, it creates more room for that R&D that perhaps a young person that may or may not agree with that narrative could actually go, okay, so now how do we pivot then, right? And instead of the whole renewable, because people should be doing the research about how much that would actually cost, right? Which is far more than what oil and gas does, right? What are the methods then that you could be using to actually think, how do we go beyond that, right? But you got to start somewhere. And what we have right now is not being utilized. And a lot of people that me and Maddie have been talking to that are in favor of Alberta independence are largely, yes, coming from the oil and gas industry, but it's not because of the big oil executives at the top. They're just hardworking guys that are working their asses off, and they're not getting anything for it, and they can't prosper off of it.
So here's the other thing. Do you know what a catalytic converter is?
Yes, but
Right,
maybe
Yes,
the
but for
audience
the audience,
doesn't.
you should, yeah.
So a catalytic converter is something that takes the pollution out of what gas, the product. So when gas burns, there's pollution that's attached to it, and the catalytic converter basically cleans it up and makes water out of it. That's basically what it does. So we used to drive to Edmonton back 25, 30 years ago, and you could see a brown cloud over Edmonton. Since the catalytic converter, that's not the way it is. So my point here is this. If you use the energy for what it's supposed to, because it's cheap energy and it will allow us to be rich, it'll allow us to succeed. There's always technology out there that can take advantage of, that you can take advantage of. And the atmosphere is actually cleaner now than it was 30 or 40 years ago based on that. And I mean, people used to smoke in their cars, all that stuff has changed now. People are very much aware of that. People are not dumping sewage into the lakes and like they used to do before. All of this stuff has all changed, and it's all for the better. And you can do those things together. You can make the oil patch work, you can create the wealth for the people can work, have a job, have a life, raise a family. That's all stuff that you can do based on the fact that we have all those resources here, and if we use them intelligently. The choices that we're making right now are whether we're going to use them for ourselves or whether we're going to give them to a very small group of people that are actually going to take and steal all of it from us, and they're going to use it for themselves. And I really, really believe that that's our choices, and it's doable. All you have to do is make up your mind that you're going to go down a path that you're going to consciously help yourself. And I mean, there's more to it than just oil and gas. I mean, there's agriculture, there's forestry, there's all manner, there's mining, there's all manner of things here in Alberta that we have. There's clean water. We've got some of the cleanest water in the world. People are going to need that. There's all, I mean, we're talking about industry that we could make our own fertilizer. Mm-hmm. We could clean up our food. We could absolutely clean up our medical system. We could absolutely clean up what's on the shelf of the grocery store, so you don't have to check every single thing to make sure that they're not poisoning
I
them.
think that's a really valuable point for young people to understand is so often than not, when you get worried about a problem, you get swayed into an extreme into how to solve it. And instantly it's get rid of. Okay, well, if you want it like to go away, then just make it go away, right? But it's like that's what they're thinking about in terms of oil and gas. They're like, well, then just cut it, right? Like how the federal government sees it. It's just no more pipelines, whatever. But you're trying to explain that two things can be true at the same time. You can thrive having your oil and gas sector, right? But you can also thrive by outsourcing. It's called addition, not subtraction. So that's proactive thinking, right? Is okay, so how do we branch out then into other areas of our life to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and our environment, right? On top of having our oil and gas, instead of completely, the answer is get rid of it completely, right?
So if the answer is you want to take care of the environment, and Germany and Japan and all these countries are after us for LNG, which we have in abundance, which we burn off, which would do what? It would stop them from burning coal. And they would burn natural gas, which is way cleaner.
Yeah.
And it would make everybody here way richer. How's that not a win-win?
Right. Well, even if you want to make upgrades and go to something like nuclear, or even, I'm not in favor of any wind farms, but one thing people don't consider is that it took oil and gas to make those wind farms, and it would take oil and gas to make a nuclear power plant, all the supplies. So even adding, as Macy said, which is the way we should be doing hybrids, even what they do with trucks when they make hybrid trucks.
Yeah, Edison Motors with their electric diesel, right?
Yeah, right. But even that takes oil and gas, and it takes a mixture of things. So even if you start upgrading to things like nuclear, you're not phasing out oil and gas. And so instead of worrying about that, and that's an expensive way to do things when we're not even using what we have in our own backyard right now. I mean, the fact that we couldn't get investors in a data center and not in a pipeline in Alberta, that confuses me. Why are we building data centers, but we can't build a pipeline? Why is that the trade-off? That makes no sense to me as somebody that is a young person that like all the things you alluded to. And I do like how you begun with this episode, because people of your vintage, the fact that they grew up with the golden age of Canada, I've been hearing from a lot of the older people that are in favor of staying in Canada, and it's because they remember that. They're like, well, we can get there, right? Mm-hmm. We just have to take a certain amount of steps. And the thing is, the youth want what they had, but in order to get it, we can't do the same thing because, well, the world has changed.
Well, this leads perfectly into one of the questions that I had, and a lot of youth have, because we've been in the conservative spheres as well, so we know the young people that are in the conservative movement more specifically, but they have this sentiment of, well, why can't we just keep on pushing the UCP and get in a better federal leader like Poilievre, for example, right?
Why can't we just vote conservative?
Why is not just voting conservative the way to solve the problem for the youth, do you think?
Well, it can be. Mm-hmm. It can be a solution. But the whole thing is that you have to get the UCP to think like we do. Mm-hmm. So you have a problem within the UCP. The UCP is a combination of the Progressives and the Wild Rose, and that's when they came together. They formed the UCP. Those two sides of the conservative movement in Alberta are very much alive. Mm-hmm. I am a Wild Rose guy,
right?
Plain and simple. Like and I was supporting Danielle when she was a Wild Rose girl.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I can remember how very, very upset I was with her when she crossed the floor the first time on me, and how much doubly upset I am now that she crossed the floor on me again.
Right.
So, just saying. So fool me once, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. The thing that if we believe that we want a better life for Albertans, if we believe that we don't want to be ruled by the Liberals, if we believe, because I really believe that all of those people are the same people. Mm-hmm. I believe that there's a left wing, a right wing, and everything. It's all the same bird. Right. So there's no getting around that. Harper didn't build any pipelines.
Nope.
And all that stuff. And I was a big Stephen Harper fan. Let's be clear. I voted for Stephen Harper. I voted for Jason Kenney. And how did that turn out?
Oh my gosh.
So here we are. And then Danielle comes out and she says, okay, you know what, Sovereignty Act, we're going to do this. I said, okay, there's going to be change. There's going to be real change. So this is what the real change is going to look like. Alberta is going to become more sovereign. So there could have been several, many steps that she could have taken to make Alberta more sovereign. She hasn't done any of that. So in order for that to happen, if you really want to make change, let's go back to where we started. We have to become the party. We have to become the government. So the young people of this province have to get involved, and just like everybody else. The cost of your apathy is this. You're going to allow other people to make your decisions for you because you're not there to make them. And then you're going to have to live with the consequence. And that's what we're doing now. And I'm as guilty as anybody. I'm not going to lecture anybody about that because 4 or 5 years ago, before COVID, I had no idea about any of this. So, but now we're here, and now we understand that there's changes that can be made. There's wealth to be had. We can improve our situation. We're paying 43 to 48% tax. Nobody can afford a house. The house prices are through the roof. Jobs are not what they were because here's the other problem. They're bringing in all manner of people into this province that we can't sustain. There's just too many people here now. And it doesn't matter who they are, they're taking jobs. And so as a consequence to that, employers have the option to pay less because there's more people looking for work. And then as a consequence to that, that hurts everybody here. And so everything has to be done in a bit of a controlled manner. And the point of taking over the UCP or getting people, and just be aware, the UCP is, according to our polls, 70% of people in the UCP government right now are Independence people. So that's a big percent of the base. But what we need to do is we need to all get on the same page because we're all working for a goal that's going to make everybody better off, including and especially the kids. I'm past the stage where I need to worry about this. I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing it for these kids. I'm doing it for everybody. The reason I'm here. And that's the goal. The entire goal is to make Alberta basically what it was before, where we can actually hope that our young people can raise a family, get married, have a home, and build a really nice life. And that's what we had the opportunity to do, and it's getting harder and harder to do. Now, just as recently as, and then coming down with all these C-bills and all these things that are going to restrict freedom, which is what allows you to actually succeed. So we have some really big decisions to make. We're in a situation right now where I'm not saying that the sky's falling, but I'm saying you better be aware.
Yeah, there was we had a comment from a young man on Instagram, and he said that one of the things that convinced him to vote in favor of Alberta independence, which is not even what this referendum question is.
No, it's a question to
But
ask a question.
It's non-binding.
It's a non-binding question to pursue a voice at the very minimum. But he said the thing that kind of pushed him towards wanting to vote this way was the blatant corruption, lying coming out of Ottawa. He said, even particularly what you had just alluded to, the COVID years, he said after the COVID years, in particular, after finding out they weren't about health or safety, and then it was planned to test what they could get away with, kind of like a rat test. He said that pushed me over, and he's like, I need to do something. And that's what me and Macy had said on our testimonies. We don't want to be naive. We've done a lot of history, and so when it comes to countries separating, we've seen a lot of countries do well, and then also right after separation, they've also gotten co-opted by bigger people. That's things like Operation Gladio for those who don't know about that. But so we understand that there could be difficulties with separation, but that's not due to the lack of willingness of the people. And that's what the Alberta youth know, is that they have the entrepreneurial spirit, and they're like, if we Alberta have more jurisdiction so we can start building, they want to build. They're trying to build now with all the restrictions and all of the, and so you remove that, they're just going to do what they want to be doing now anyway, but with less handicaps, essentially.
This leads to two comments / a follow-up of a question that I have, which is when I was getting and receiving these youth's remarks about what it is that kind of won them over, even the people that are a little bit trepidatious but are actually, acting like human beings and asking legitimate questions, regardless of the fact that they're trepidatious and not just calling us racist and stuff. They were saying that would Alberta truly be sovereign and on its own? And that's one of the key, a question like that is obviously huge to answer because there's so many, like, in what way are you trying to ask that? Because there's so many different facets of how we could be, right? But when the fact that they even ask the question, though, shows, though, that that's what they want. They want to be sovereign and they want to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, and that, as Maddie's alluding to. And so the follow-up question that plays into what you're talking about, which is there are a lot of concerns from youth, and that was one of the questions that we got from someone, was the landlocked issue. It's actually still something that is even on the minds of youth, because to them, they're thinking that, okay, there are countries that have been landlocked and they became independent countries. That's just facts, right?
Lots of them.
A lot of them. But the thing that concerns them is, okay, so, and even in some ways, it concerned me when I was first trying to get into my research about Alberta independence, was with where Canada's going, and even if you're seeing how they're interacting with the U.S. right now, it's like trying not to, the U.S. tariffs them, and then we are like, we're not going to buy your booze, and we're trying to do all these petty things to conquer that, and et cetera. I'm like, if we were to leave, the thing that would concern, I think, some people, and so this is where your knowledge and expertise can come into this, is the way that they're treating us now within Alberta. That behavior, are they still going to try and replicate that and treat us like that, even if we became independent, and so therefore block our ability to, give pipelines and put them throughout the rest of Canada, and or given with the transition it's going to take to be getting on the ground with our own trade deals, right? Trump might not be in the presidential term by the time that we're getting trade deals started with the U.S. by the time we become independent. So what would that look like, right?
Yeah, they want to know what trade, as a landlocked
nation, what are our options, and how do we trade?
So the Americans need oil, period. And we have it. Okay, so that's where we are. We're actually seeing them today negotiating Keystone, okay, right, which Alberta built. So that's going to increase oil production here by 1 million barrels a day. So that's a lot. So just understand, we produce 4.5 to 5 million barrels now. We're going to increase that by 15 or 18%. It's going to take 4 or 5 years to catch up to that. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of economic activity tied to that. We're already landlocked. Okay, we sell 88% of our product south, which is now going to increase to probably over 90% if Keystone gets approved. Okay, so we have a customer for our product. Right, so everybody's going to say, oh, well, that could hold us up. But also, British Columbia depends on our oil and gas because it comes from here. Okay? And we've traded freely with British Columbia since the inception of Canada. Okay? Their product has gone right across Alberta to Eastern Canada. 70 to 80% of the stuff that they ship from Port of Prince Rupert, Port of Vancouver, go right across Alberta with no tariff and no charge. So why is it reasonable? Or why would a reasonable person think it's reasonable for them to be able to do that, but yet not allow us to ship our product across BC? And if we're in control of our own country, then we make our own border rules. So we could tariff BC. So we could literally do the opposite. We could literally landlock BC.
Right. It's now allowing us an opportunity to have our own leverage, because right now we don't even have access to it, so we can't leverage what we don't have access to. Yeah. But if we did, then instantly you have a seat at the negotiating table. Yeah. Yes. And would we want to? No. But at the same time, that's the whole point of trade deals, is you have to negotiate, guys. So
yeah. So you know what? A really good business deal is when it benefits both people.
Yes. Win-win.
It's
cooperation.
A win-win. Yeah. So how can we've already got a corridor. We've already got Trans Mountain. They could double Trans Mountain. And now if we get Keystone and Trans Mountain, we're 10 to 15 years down the road of absolute massive economic activity. And we can produce that. We're the cleanest oil patch in the world.
We're also good friends with our neighbors already. Saskatchewan, it's like we're great neighbors with them, so it's not.
So what I'm saying is the trade deals are going to happen on their own. Countries are coming, they want oil and gas, especially with the Strait of Hormuz and all of the stuff that's going on there. They want a safe, stable energy supply place, and that's Alberta.
And also, I think one of the key things for people to understand as well is maybe they think that the federal government has some sort of say over how the trade deals happen between the provinces. If I'm not mistaken, that should be for provincial jurisdiction. I say should be because of the way Alberta's been going. But so regardless, we will be having our negotiations with those individual provinces. And yes, you could say that, well, what if the federal government tries to, I guess, coerce them not to trade with us? And so what would be your...
So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So Quebec wants independence. Alberta wants independence. I've done Saskatchewan meetings, 6 or 8 of them.
A lot of them want to follow whatever
They,
Alberta
they,
does.
they want independence.
Yeah.
I will guarantee you Northern BC is just like us. So what are you seeing? So this is what I see as a perfect Canada. Every province is its own country, and they get together
And we cooperate.
right? And
Yes.
we trade
Right?
together. BC gets to ship across Alberta and sell us their fruit and sell us all their stuff that they produce, and we get to provide them with oil and gas, and so that they can stay warm in the winter. And then we provide them with a boatload of tourists every summer that go spend a ton of money over there and make their economy better. And then we go fishing on the West Coast and do all that kind of stuff like I do every year. And we do what we can do together. We drink BC wine, do all that manner of stuff, and everybody's better off.
No, that's lovely, because one thing that the youth should also hear and recognize is that Macy and I's podcast it's international. We have people from the US, and we have also people across Ontario that watch, and their feedback is, I hope you get it. And so, because they understand that it is not we're doing this out of a selfishness and we hate the rest of Canada. Anybody that has that, or they think that we don't want to cooperate with the rest of Canada, that is a false narrative. The reality is we would love cooperation, and independence actually makes it easier for us to cooperate with people and get the trade deals and have the
Yes.
relationships that we want.
I think this
and so
is-
a lot of
yeah.
Ontarians have been giving us the feedback. They're like, please
This is
do the
the-
thing, because they know they're not going to get left in the dust.
This is the key difference that I think a lot of people in our generation need to understand about the equalization grievances that Alberta has. Is it's not necessarily even like about the fact that we're not receiving, it's just how much we're giving away. That is for provinces that if they just changed their policies by a fraction of that, they wouldn't be considered have not, and we wouldn't be having to fund this welfare system, because that's a toxic codependency that we're talking about this whole time, which is if you want sovereignty, that's not how you get it. It's not depending on somebody else. It's why you want to be able to what? Depend on yourself, have a home to stand
So if
on.
people want to understand what she's talking about, it's called moratoriums. And so there's a couple provinces, including like Quebec, where they have moratoriums on some of their industry and some of their energy sectors. That way they continue qualifying for the equalization payments. But if they took the moratoriums down and produced a little more, even increasing their electro by like a couple cents, then they wouldn't qualify, and they wouldn't. So they don't need it. They're actually intentionally holding themselves back, and so they don't need to. And so we could actually as all provinces, be equally rising together if we get rid of some of the bureaucracy that's just been in the background for so long. Most Quebecers probably don't even know it's there. Let's be real, because Canadians haven't. They've just been trying to meet the daily grind. They're not looking at stuff like that.
And that, I think, is the key difference. Is it's not that we aren't looking at our fellow Canadian provinces and friends and seeing that we don't want to help wherever it is that we can. But the difference is it's like if you had someone living in your house that you don't own, by the way, and you don't have one because of the state that we're in. But anyways, play the hypothetical. You have someone who's a bit of like a couch bum on your staying with you, but they are talented, and you know that, and they perhaps have a skill and a talent that that if they just applied themselves, entrepreneurially speaking, they could actually get off their own feet, and they could have a way to get out of your house and go make a life for themselves. Why wouldn't you be wanting to encourage that part of them to, build yourself up and then go out into the world and create something for you, so that way you don't just have to be dependent on me? And in some ways, it's not because you have a gripe against giving them the support, but they're just not supporting themselves in the way that you believe in them that they could be. And that's the same thing that I think as Albertans we see with the other provinces, which is you don't need to be trying to qualify for these payments, guys. Like, you have talent, you have ability, you have strong people that can get the job done just as equally as we could, right? And so that's why when we are speaking about Alberta independence, and in my testimony I said someone has to lead by example, is because when we then are able to harness our own ability to take care of ourselves, then we can look at you and actually go like, we would love to help you in any way that you ask for, but at the same time, look at how well you're doing. Now we're putting our money and where it is that we choose to help you in ways that are far exceeding just, I guess, letting you scrap at the bottom, if that makes sense. We were mentioning the R&D thing previously in the conversation, and that's what that money would be used for, is how now we're expanding into different evolutions of ideas, and now that goes into technology development and just different ways of how we keep building up, not how we stay at bare minimum
So
at the
Mitch,
bottom.
do you have a comment on that before there's a question from a youth on this?
I had a very extensive meeting with Paul Plamondon, who is the leader of the Parti Québécois. And we talked about equalization. And you know what he said? He said, "You know what that equalization money gets used for? It's to buy votes for the Liberals." So he said, literally, we don't need your equalization.
They
We
don't.
don't actually want your equalization, because what it's used for is to work against us. So Quebec gets what, $2,700 or $2,800 a year per taxpayer of equalization payment is what they get basically from Alberta. So per taxpayer, but you know the Maritimes, some of them are getting $5,000 to $6,000 per taxpayer of equalization payments. So that cripples them. I agree with you, and it actually takes somewhere between, Alberta's sending $47 billion a year away from Alberta, that money that we've created and earned. And
Yeah.
you want to understand that our budget is $70 billion. We could cut your taxes, and literally cut your taxes in half if we became independent, easily. So just understand what that means. Just understand what that means to you. So if you're paying 40% tax and we cut 20% off of that, you're earning $100,000. Let's use 100 because it's round. So you're earning $100,000. That will give you $20,000 a year more disposable income. So that's just about a mortgage payment. Well, it is a mortgage payment for a lot of people. So if you do it twice, because you're both working, so you're, if you're earning that in the house, just think of what you could do with that extra money. And that money is this is not a fairy tale. We're not making this up. That money is available to you based on what we already earn. That doesn't include Keystone.
Now, we had a young man, and I don't know if he has resources or where to go to get some of these numbers. He was asking about, like, is there a graph that I can refer to regarding, like, GDP? Not that GDP is a good measurement. Macy and I just kind of learned that.
Watch our episode with Dennis Kalma and Matthew Arrett.
Yeah, they explain why GDP is actually not a good measure for personal productivity per person, for growth and economic development.
The best example I can use is Dennis just basically said, let's say that you paid me $5 to be on your podcast and I decided to give it back to you. That's a boost in GDP. It's like,
well, yeah, because it's
a
considered
whole
10, so it's like,
exactly.
Now it's called rehypothecation
Yes.
for those who don't know, and it's taking money and then just using it again, but they consider it doubled the amount because it's in circulation.
That is literally the
GDP.
definition of, like, money printing, essentially.
It's money printing, essentially, and that's how GDP is measured. And so, but aside from that little rant, they were wondering, like, how do we know that housing costs would be good after independence? Is there somewhere I can go to get some economic graphs and understand the before and after?
Well, you could go to the value of freedom. But the other part, there's other parts to GDP. It measures investment, right? Investment's part of GDP. So if you get people that are going to invest in Alberta, that will help you. That will help build the economy. That will help do everything. So we've had hundreds of billions of dollars worth of investment leave Alberta. Carney, since he's become prime minister, I understand there's like $400 or $500 billion that's left Canada for investment here.
Yeah.
So what's happening is this: we're bleeding wealth, and we have to understand that there's a consequence to that. And the more of that we continue to do, the bigger the consequence is going to be. There are places in the world, Saudi Arabia, for example, that produces oil and oil byproducts and silica. They do not pay tax. There's states in the U.S. that do not pay tax. They do not pay any income tax. So there's places that Florida's talking about not paying property tax. We can do that here. We're being overtaxed.
Yeah, I think I don't know if this young person understands that when it comes to policies, like, I know it sounds like, oh, he's talking about taxes, that's a policy thing rather than a finance thing, but policies are direct correlations to how your finances end up turning up, because if your taxes are really high, that literally comes out of your income. And property taxes, because of also dumb things in, like, city policy, property taxes are insane right now. And so that also goes towards how high your rent is. Because right now, I mean, our two of our best friends just moved to Texas because it was more affordable, and to do schooling, they couldn't do insurance here, and they said their rent was $2,600, 2600, and that's a mortgage for a house for 7 people. Like, okay, that's, and 2 people that are 23 and 24, they can't afford that. So just to show how that directly correlates to good policy making and lowering those taxes can literally make the houses more affordable and all that jazz.
So there's hidden taxes all over the place, and that's the other thing you've got to understand. So let's, well, if you're buying alcohol, a percentage of that is tax that goes to the federal and provincial government. If you're buying gas, every time you fill up your car, all of that is included in the tax that these hidden taxes are real costs. And the other thing that we've got is we're paying carbon tax. And this carbon tax is a real serious hidden cost. Like this MOU that the Premier is negotiating with Carney right now, they're talking about a $10 to $15 per barrel increase in cost to produce. That affects everything. That affects everything. That affects what it costs to move into your house. It costs it affects what it costs you to eat. It affects everything. So what we're saying is that those policies are not necessary. Those policies don't accomplish anything except making you poorer. The money goes somewhere, but not here. Some of it goes here, like $3 billion stays here, from what I understand. I'm not clear on that. Don't quote me on that. but what I'm saying is that by increasing cost of production on all of this stuff, it hits you directly in your wallet. And if your wallet's not very big, the problem is that it hurts you more in proportion to, for example, me or people that have been earning their whole lives. It hurts you, and of course don't have 4 or 5 kids in the house to raise and pay for anymore. So then, as a consequence to that, I have a friend that says you don't have to save any money to retire. Your kids just have to move out. Mm-hmm. And nowadays that's getting to be more and more difficult. So you have to
kids
understand.
are moving back in. Oh my
Kids
gosh,
are moving back
we
in.
have so many stories of
And
kids
seniors
moving
are
back
moving back in too.
Yes, that's true too.
And seniors are moving back in too. So
Yeah.
so just understand that all of this is not accidental. All of this is designed. It's by policy. It's government doing this on purpose, and that's not a conspiracy theory. And just the other thing, dirty oil. Just let's go there for 2 seconds. Our oil produces diesel way better than white pure oil. So, and it produces plastic. It's better grade of oil than something that you could buy, say, for example, in Saudi, because you can make more products out of it. So just understand, there's no such thing as dirty oil, and that's something started by the Americans, and to keep our oil in the ground so that they would have it there if they needed it.
Yeah, collateral. Actually, you alluded to retirement, and one of the questions. This is a lot of youth, especially young men in the trades. They have expressed they don't believe they have a pension at all. They're like, the way things are going, they're like, I don't think I have a pension. I don't even know what I'm like, what money is going there. It's not mine. He's like, I'm not going to get that. They firmly believe that. So one of the questions was, like, what about pensions? Do they actually get a pension? Are their concerns null and void?
Okay, so you know what? I know a little bit about pension. First of all, I'm a pensioner. Second of all, I did 100 town halls on Canada Pension and Alberta Pension, and I'm going to tell you a secret. Our pension plan right now is brutal. It's not bad, it's absolutely brutal. And I'm going to, first of all, I want you to understand something. And this is how we have to start the conversation. The conversation is that money that you put in that pension fund is your money. Okay, so you got to understand that. That's your private property, that's your money. You're sending it to government so that, you and me as an employer, I match your contribution, and that's my money. It's not the government's money. And our money together goes someplace where they can actually take care of it for you, so that if you retire, then you don't have to be a ward of the state, and they will have this money put aside so that you can absolutely take care of yourself. But can you take care of yourself on $1,200 a month, which is what I'm getting?
That's compared to what we've heard from some others. They said they get 800 a month.
But anyway, so let's go there.
That's still terrible. Both are terrible.
so we're going to come out with a paper here. So I want you to understand something else. I had the option of opting out of Canada Pension and doing my own pension plan. If I had done that, If I had done my own pension plan and earned 8% over the course of my life at the contribution rate I was making, I would be getting $6,500 a month from my pension,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so just understand this. That's at 8%. That's how this calculation, and we're going to have this all printed out for you, and we're going to present this very fact of what we can do with your pension in a free country, in a free and independent Alberta. We can change it so the pension belongs to you, and that the matching money, everything goes into a place where it's a different pension plan where the pension plan belongs to you, and when you die, the $1.7 million that you will accumulate in your lifetime, if you earn $60,000 a year, will belong to you, and you will get this $5,500 a month in payment. So today, at $800 a month, what happens to the balance between the $5,500 and the $800? Where does that go? That stays there with the government. So they're basically making you pay for your whole life, giving you a pittance of what you should be getting, like a fifth is how this works out. And you don't have to change a thing. This is at 8%. They're claiming they're getting 9.5% or 9% on CPP for all this time. So that number would actually be bigger.
Right.
So here's the thing. Your private property could go into a private pension fund if it earns 8%, and if you're earning $60,000 a year, at the end of this, you could have a much higher rate of return. And the other thing that could happen is, if you pass away, you could hand that money or inherit. You could give that money to your children, so they could use it to make their lives better. And two parents giving $1 million+ away to their children will help the kids' lifestyle. Right now, none of that happens. And again, that's something that they're very aware of. And you're right. I would be worried about where this pension money is, because as far as I'm personally concerned, it's a big Ponzi scheme. And Albertans pay more than their share. We pay $9 billion a year. Our seniors collect $6 billion. So we pay $3 billion a year more. And that money belongs to Alberta seniors. The federal government actually owes us $400 billion in pension, if that pension actually exists. If it comes back here, there again, based on that rate of return, we could actually do that $5,000 to $6,000 a month for pensioners right now, and actually set up the plan for the younger people, which I would be 100% in favor of, because that money is your money. It's not their money.
Or a lot of the young men understand that in the workforce. That's why they're like, this is nonsense. They're like, pensions mention. Another thing on money is that from the young people was, okay, what happens to my Canadian money or my bank account or my student debt? Those were three things that they were wondering about.
Okay, well, the money, I think so just understand a little bit about the money. So the reason the Premier asked me one time, and I didn't understand, but I do understand now, is that what would you think if we would trade in, Alberta would trade in U.S. funds? And I didn't understand the point of the question, but now I do. So we sell our oil in U.S. dollars. That's 88% of our exports is oil. So by doing that, we actually increase the value of the Canadian dollar. If, in today's setup, if we sell all this oil and we sell more oil, and, the value of the Canadian dollar goes up because it's more secure. But what happens is if the value of the Canadian dollar goes up, it gets harder to sell manufactured products in the East. So it would actually be better for us to actually trade in U.S. funds right now, so that we wouldn't buoy up the Canadian dollar artificially based on our oil field production, and it would be better for everybody. So they could leave the dollar down instead of trying to suppress our industry, which is what they're actually doing. So what I'm saying is that your student loans and all the rest of that kind of stuff would probably stay where they are, because it's money that's owed. So I'm sure they would want to collect it. You will retain your Canadian citizenship because you can have more than one passport.
That was another question. What about my passport? Can I still travel?
Of course, you'll retain your Canadian citizenship. You can have more than one passport, and as a pensioner, there's a portability clause there that says that you can get your pension anywhere in the world, and they have to give you. That's your private property. They have to pay it to you wherever you are.
Yeah, and Canadians that live in the U.S., because Macy and I listen to a lot of podcasts while we're scrubbing toilets for a living, and they can vouch. They say, yeah, we just get our pension here in the U.S.
It's no problem.
No problem. Okay, now other questions some people were wondering, do we have to rebuild from scratch? Do we have to start over?
Well, I would suggest we do not. I would suggest that if you look
You
around.
don't want to burn everything down?
No,
Really?
Burn the village to save the village?
I would suggest we don't start from scratch. Look around. All you have to do is go for a drive. Look around and see what's here. Look at the size of the farms. Look at the size of industry that we already have here. Look at how competent the people are. All you have to do is go to, if you ever get a chance to go north, go to Imperial Oil or go to these places where these big plants are, and you have to see how well run they are, how actually, there's not a scrap of paper anywhere on any of these oil sites. Everything is done. And you know what? Yeah, there is reclamation stuff that went on in the past, but you know what? We can clean that up too. If you have money, that's all doable. And nature has a way of reclaiming it all on its own anyway, so I promise you that. So, but what I'm saying is that, no, we don't have to build over again. We've got lots of infrastructure here, and we've paid for it. The people of Alberta have paid for all of it. And as far as your healthcare is concerned, that's another one that I get at town halls. We pay for that already. We're not getting any money. We send the money to the federal government. The federal government sends it back to us, and it's somewhere in the $24-25 billion range. That's our money in the first place. We could actually make that better by being in control of the process from top to bottom. So there is nothing that the federal government does for us that we will miss. Not one thing.
I guess the last thing kind of on that note and talking about these changes was the youth were wondering how long would it take for us to reap the benefits of Alberta independence? Is it the day after we vote for the referendum, or?
Well, I would hope to think that would be the case. that would be the goal.
Of course.
Here's the problem.
I guess that's another question they had, was like, okay, does that depend on who's in charge? And if that's the case, do we pick who's in charge?
Well, you will. That's the point of the whole thing. The point of the whole thing is you pick who's in charge. You get to make the rules. You get to understand what's going on. That's what we're doing with this constitution that we're putting out there. We want people to understand that they're going to have the opportunity to make the rules, and they're going to have the opportunity to have some form of control over what's going on out there. And how long is it going to take? Well, you know what? The sooner the better, as far as I'm personally concerned. But why would they want to let us go? We're the only province in Alberta, we're the only province in Canada right now that's not in recession. We're the engine of the country, and they absolutely need Alberta. So if you're in a position to become independent, would you rather be the engine or not? And that's the position we're in. We're the engine. We have people chasing us down for our wealth. Understand this. Everybody wants what we have here in Alberta. Alberta can succeed because we have the resources and we have the people that can get it out of the ground, that can make this work. Our oil people go all over the world to work. Our agriculture people are top notch. Like our farms you just have to go drive past them to see how well they're running, and all the things that we do well. We do everything well, and so as a consequence to that, we will be fine. How long is it going to take? Well, like I said, as fast as we can do that, we're going to get it done. It's going to depend on you.
I was about to say, you said we implies, okay, if you want it done fast, you have to participate, and you have to, in order to make it go faster.
So Bulgaria had 2 million people sit on the steps of their parliament, and the government resigned the next day. So we've got 2 million Albertans that can sit on the steps and say, hey, you know what, we want better. We want to be in control of this because it's ours. We were born here, we were raised here. And I know that sounds like it's hard to wrap your brain around that all this wealth belongs to us. But that's actually the case. And what I'm trying to tell you is it doesn't belong to the Liberals in Ottawa either. So we just have to make a choice. They're treating it like it's their personal business. And we have to understand that it's not their personal business. It's something that we can use to our great benefit and to make Alberta and us and our people much better off.
Yeah, my tiny little comments on that would be when it comes to the idea of starting from scratch. When we were reading the Value of Freedom document, because our family did a series for those of you who can't read and only want to listen, it's on our channel. But while we were going through it, a lot of how we've been saying that, okay, so once we became independent, you would be able to stop paying a bunch of taxes that you were mentioning, the hidden taxes, right? I think that one of my questions then for I guess the people that are also on the lines of would we have to start from scratch is we already know that it's going to go into negotiating with the federal government to see what it is that would look like. In terms of, let's say, abandoning the equalization payments, right? Like, hypothetically, is that one of the possibilities that could happen, right? Which is when we declare independence right away, we can end those, or do we have to negotiate to get those out of the way? Because to me, I see that as Alberta's hidden tax, which is imagine what we could be starting to do to develop our own, I guess, federal services that are technically given to us, right, by the federal government. They're technically paying for it, right? But with our money, it's basically how do we take will we be able to take our money right away so that we can transition nicely into getting all the services and the system in a nice transition for us?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is collect your own taxes. Sure.
Stop sending it.
Stop
right.
sending it
Right.
the next day.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you do that, then that gives you the ability to negotiate. So if you can control your own taxes, Saskatchewan stop paying carbon tax. So, I mean, we could stop paying carbon tax too right away. We could tell our employers, look, this money comes here instead of there. And then it'll sit there or whatever we need to do with it. And then we can negotiate, from a position of strength based on the fact that the people of Alberta no longer want to be part of this deal. And, and that gives Ottawa the opportunity to come back with a deal too. The Clarity Act says, that the Aboriginal people and the government of Alberta and the government of Canada are going to sit and negotiate a deal. I personally don't think that, if they wanted to do that, I don't see what's stopping them from doing it now. There's no reason why they're not trying to reach out to us. They have not said a word, as far as I'm concerned. They have not done a thing to try and keep Canada together, and yet they're the ones that are screaming elbows up. I just don't understand how that works.
Are you talking to the Aboriginals?
Oh, no. Aboriginals are just with us. I mean, I have many conversations with Aboriginal people, on one-on-one, and they have the same problem we have. They have corrupt chiefs, and they're not getting any of the money. Yeah. And so as a consequence to that, they're very much in support of Alberta independence. As a matter of fact, in our last poll, 45% of Aboriginals were in favor of Alberta independence, with 15% undecided.
Right.
That's a big number. So there's 15% undecided. I would suggest there's 7 or 8% of those people that are scared to tell you that they're for Alberta independence for one reason or another. Yeah,
actually, on that, and that's something I want young people to take away, is that I didn't necessarily know this before a couple weeks ago. It was just happening that, our family, after a family movie night after dinner, we were just BSing on the couch, and my brother is 27 and he's in the workforce, doing trades like a lot of young men his age and even 18. We just had a comment from a 24-year-old, and he's like, me and my peers, and I got this feedback also from my brother, guys on the job that are working trades, they don't know people that aren't in favor of Alberta separation that are their age. So if you're a young man working age, the reality is they are voting in favor of independence. You're not going to see them advocating for it like Macy and I on a screen. They're busy working. But they know that there's enough problems going out there. They're going to put their money where their mouth is, and they're going to vote for it. So that's one thing that I realized while talking and meeting these young men within the last couple of weeks, is that majority of them are voting for independence. It's just they're not on face. So although it looks like there's not a lot of youth that are out there talking about this thing, they're just doing it in real life where, real life matters, because that's where the grind is.
Or think about this, you might have even been one of these individuals yourself, but the people that decided that they weren't going to necessarily sign the petition because they didn't want to have their name to a list, but they are 100% decidedly going to be voting to option 2 on the referendum.
There's a lot of people that we've heard are explicitly, they're like, not voting on this thing, but I will be voting for when the time comes.
So just understand this, there's nothing at stake in this vote.
Mm-hmm.
So
right?
if you really want to send a message to Ottawa, there's nothing at stake in this vote. This vote is a vote to have a vote.
That's it.
So that's it. There's nothing. It's no more complicated than that.
Yep.
And that's not the deal going in, by the way, when we collected those 300,000 signatures.
Yep.
That is not the deal going in. The deal is that was lots of signatures to trigger a referendum for independence.
Yep.
So the deal going, so this is a first step. So just understand if you and even the fact that this is being challenged the way it's being challenged, if this if this doesn't succeed based on the games that the government's played, it's going to seriously affect democracy. Based on the fact that we now cannot no longer petition the government and ask a question and get a result of the reason why we actually petition the government.
Right.
So, and Justice Feasby in court said, and I don't agree with this, and I'm sure most of you don't, there are questions that the people shouldn't be allowed to ask. So I'm going to share that with you. Now, just understand the mentality of that elite mentality that comes along with that statement, that you guys are too stupid to make your own rules and too stupid to do your own thing. You're good enough to pull all the oil out of the ground and you can provide the money to the government so I can be paid, however, my $500,000 salary or whatever I make, but you can't make these decisions. And we get that from all kinds of people. They say, well, you know what, you guys step aside and let the professionals take over.
That is called feudalism.
Whatever it is definitely alive and well in Alberta.
And I just wanted to make sure that we did touch on this specific one about the economic graph. You said to go to the value of freedom. He just said as well, this individual, they would want the GDP per capita post-exit and pre-exit compared to a graph of housing costs would do it for them. And so then you said that you would refer to the value of freedom. And to me personally, I also just wanted to say that, like, trying to get exact data evidence of what it would look like post-independence is a little bit like it is game theorizing, and there are obviously like documents that you and a lot of people have collaborated on, and there's more evidence coming out from other people trying to put forward transitions, and so there's that, but really truly, like, you don't know until you're in it. So you trying to, this is I think the fallacy of a young individual, and of I've done it myself, which is trying to get the perfect boxed answer before you make a decision and leap into something. There is no, you have to have a little bit of faith when you're going into this.
Look at the mentalities of the other young men on the workforce. It's like they're not voting for independence because they have a graph showing them that it's going to be financially better. These are young men that are used to working to make a living. They're earning it. And so they're voting for Alberta independence because they believe it'll give them a 75 at least % chance at earning it. It's our job to make it happen. That's what voting on a vote and all these steps are. It's our job. And that's why the young men, a lot of them are in favor of it that are working the trades, is because they're not waiting for a graft. They're saying I'm voting because I'm used to working to get my life in my own hands. If this is how I do it, this is what's going to happen. So they're going to make you a graft by them doing the work. You don't get it now. It's going to be on the backs of young men like yourself asking the question to make that graft data happen.
Yeah, there was one thing, and then I'll pass it on to you, Mitch, to comment on what it is that we're talking about. But there was a young lady as well that said if there's any chance that she can have a life for herself, she's like, I'll vote independence. Like, she's not waiting for a graph. She's like, anything's got to be better than where it is we are right now. And the historical evidence that people like Mitch and people like Corey Morgans and the people that are in the movement trying to do the research are showcasing to us is that you can try to negotiate as much as you want with the different parties that are of the same bird, right? But you're just going to keep on getting the same results, which your generation has shown that's exactly what's happened. And now we're getting worse. It's like not just the same, it's bad. It's just not good now. So your thoughts on that?
So you have to do the work. You have to go out there and see what the C-bills are all about. You have to go out there and see why Danielle Smith is saying that the federal government is sabotaging our industry. That's her words, sabotaging our industry. That means they're sabotaging you. That's what you got to understand. The government is actively sabotaging you by doing what it's doing. It knows long term that if you have to pay more tax, you have less wealth, you have less opportunity, you have less ability to do your own thing. They know that. They also know that if they limit the amount of industry out there, that also limits your ability to earn. So, and I have been in business for 50 years. I have been through many booms and many busts.
Right.
And I'm going to share something with you. When people are earning money, things are a lot easier than when they're not. So that's what you have to understand. And there's also another layer here that, nobody wants to talk about very much. And the girls alluded to it a little bit earlier, that the stuff that went on in COVID, and everybody started in COVID. And you have to understand the mentality that brought that to you. You got to try to wrap your head around the mentality that brought actually that to you and how it ended up the way it ended up. So those are all things that we have to be conscious about, and we have to consider, and we have to think, okay, well, what are we dealing with here? What are we really dealing with here? And what's the downside and what's the upside? And that's a business decision that you're going to have to make, because that's the business decisions that we make every day. Now, I'm going to share something with you. This could be the most important business decision you ever make. Mm-hmm. And it could also be the worst business decision you ever make. So that's literally where you are.
Is there any last comments or questions before we wrap up? Because we have had you for an hour. That flew by.
That was fun.
My last little thing then would be in regards to, you mentioned, I guess, taking care of our own borders, and that's something that a lot of people are coming out to the surface of in regards to the referendum questions, is they're largely based on immigration. And then you have a lot of young people that are thinking that it's like racist and whatever, and you were alluding to the fact that it's like it doesn't matter who it is that we are trying to control in and out. That has nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that a lot of young people should also be considering when they're thinking about the topic of immigration specifically, and you mentioned we would have control over our own borders, and so we'll obviously have to negotiate how it is that we would want that. But the people that are coming in that are taking jobs, right? It's because there is incentive for their cheap labor. So if you think about it too, them coming in, it's not helping them either. It's again that premise we were talking about of the have-not. It's like it's a fallacy of just thinking that
they come and they also are being forced into multi-generational homes, just like we are.
Exactly. Like you come in thinking that you have nothing to offer, you have so much to offer, and then you need to depend on other people. And as you alluded to with Quebec, it's like they're saying, no, we don't need your equalization money. In fact, it's not even going towards where it is that we would probably want it to go towards, which is your ability to produce yourself, right? And so then these people that are coming in, you think that we're helping them when really, no, they're still just getting the bare minimum treatment that they probably were getting back when they from exiting the country that they previously exited. It's just a little bit worse. But
aside from getting better dental than some of the Canadians.
But assuming that we're treating them with the utmost respect that even they deserve is actually not correct either.
You know what? They came here for what I grew up with. Mm-hmm. That's what they came here. That's what they saw. Yeah. That's what they hoped for. Mm-hmm. And it's doable. It's doable for everybody. It's doable for everybody that's here. So everybody come to, including me, up until 5-6 years ago, I would have told anybody that I thought Canada was the cleanest country in the world. There was absolutely no corruption here. There was none of that stuff going on. The idea that the federal government could be sabotaging Alberta industry would have never dawned on me. So what's the goal? What is their goal by doing that? So we have to understand that we got to get away from that group of people so that we can succeed. We're in a bad relationship with them. We know that. It's established. We understand it, and we can't negotiate our way out. They don't even come in with any offers to make things better. So as a consequence to that, I think we can do all this on our own. They cannot produce anything that we can produce. They cannot produce the wealth. We produce all the wealth. They just skim off the top. So myself and the Parti Québécois in Quebec agree on this very thing. We agreed on a lot of things, but this is the one thing we agree on. The level of government that neither one of us needs is the federal level.
Yeah, and on the immigration note, it was actually funny because in my circles and looking online, I don't actually see a lot of white people just straight up criticizing immigration. They're actually way more compassionate. The harshest people I've heard against immigration have been the immigrants. Like, I have immigrant friends my age and not my age. That's another thing that, because me and Macy have been hearing from some young people that are like, you are being so inconsiderate and not empathetic towards the immigrants. It's like the people that actually fit that description are the immigrants themselves. And so just use your eyeballs to actually pay attention where you're getting and hearing the information, because you could be painting false narratives and false dichotomies. So
do you know why they're angry? Because they had to jump through hoop after hoop after hoop for years to get here. Mm-hmm. And what they expected when they got here was to be able to get into business at 20 or 22 years old, buy a house, have a family, and have the life that we're talking about. That's why they're angry. And then they get here, and I have a story. This is not very long ago. After an event, I was checking into a hotel somewhere here in central Alberta, and I had a suit and tie on, and the guy said to me, "Where are you?" And it was 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I was checking in. He says, "Where are you coming from?" I said, "Well, I just did an Alberta Independence event." And I said, "So, I could obviously tell he wasn't a Canadian." I said, "So where are you from?" And he told me where he's from. He says, "Well, here's the thing. I paid a guy a whole bunch of money to get me here. I sold my house at home. Everything I had, I put in to get me here. They took my money, asked me for more when I got here, and promised me this job, and I got this job, and now I have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make everything work. And then I have a friend who just did the very same thing. He sold his property down there, and he came here with high hopes that he was going to have a better life, and that he was lied to. And his friend lost his job. And he no longer had any money to go home. So he shot himself.
Oh.
So, true story. Absolutely true story. So you've got to empathize with these people. You've got to understand that they're coming here for what we had. And I totally think that that's fair if it's true. But what's happening is it's not true anymore. And as a consequence to that, the reason it's not true anymore is because it's just too many people. And it doesn't matter who those people are, there's just too many people. And so as a consequence of that, there has to be some kind of control on immigration. And that's what we're proposing. And people can come here, and then when they do get here, there's going to be opportunity for them to do exactly what we're talking about here, is have a better life for themselves and their family moving forward and forever.
Yeah, I mean, me and Macy, for those who don't know our context, we're in a family of originally 5, and then we have 2 permanent people, so now 7, a household of 7 people. And so we're in favor of, big families. We like having people around. We're that kind of people. But we would never invite a guest into our home without cleaning it, without tidying it, without making sure we have food that they'd enjoy. We would never invite them into a disarray home. Never. And so as somebody that would like to treat my province or my country as my home, I would never invite guests that I can't take care of. And that is currently where we are. So we have people and we can't take care of them. And that's not okay. There's nothing empathetic about that. So you want to be empathetic? We need to put ourselves in a position to take care of people, because right now we can't. That was a fantastic episode. I hope if there were questions that you as a young adult or a youth had that didn't get answered,
we could do a two-parter at some point.
Definitely questions, comments, and we will continue doing this to get the information out there and have the dialogues, because everybody needs to be talking about this. So thank you, Mitch, sincerely, for coming in person and doing this with us.
Yeah, we kind of made a plan, didn't we?
We did make a plan. We did make a plan.
We did.
Well, Macy, want to close this off?
Honestly, guys, thank you so much for listening to this. And again, Maddie, as you alluded to, if you have questions, put them down and maybe we could do a 2-parter. And the whole point is it's on us to get ourselves educated and to come up with our own ideas. And as Mitch said, you're in charge. You're going to be the one that has to choose what it is that you're looking for. So it's not going to be the most convenient thing to come up with the potential of a new country, but the potential is there for us to succeed. So that's all we can ask for, is potential for us to succeed. And so I would put your money where your mouth is. If it's something you care about, then I encourage you to go vote on the vote that doesn't option 2 that isn't even binding. If you want to send your message to Ottawa and actually have a voice for once.
Yep.
Just imagine in your wildest dreams, could you imagine building what we could build here in a new country? Just imagine it. Try and put your brain there. Try and say, look, this is what we have. This is what we could have. We could have this here, and we could build it ourselves.
High-speed rail from Calgary to Edmonton, and then we could get rid of long distance. Thank you, everybody. This has been another episode of At Home with Holmes.